There is definitely a lot of loss of emphasis on online for blacksmith shops as kids get into more trendy stuff like dancing or more of that newer stuff. But that's a great identity for the young generation like my generation. But I really want to come back and revive for the young generation these traditional arts because they play a really big role in not just connecting with the older generation, but also a big role in growing yourself as a person.
Craft Your Life is a radio show for the tenacious, the bold, and those who refuse to settle for mediocrity. We bring together visionaries, game changers, and relentless go-getters who are crafting their lives, businesses, and relations in pursuit of excellence. If you are ready to shatter limits, embrace the amazing, and live life on your own terms, this show is for you. Each episode delivers actionable insights, inspiring stories, and unfiltered conversations that will ignite your drive to win a life worth dying for. Tune in and get ready to live viciously. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Craft Your Life radio show. I'm your host, McLeod. Today, I have Corbin MacLeod, a local here in Grand Junction, a blacksmith, a leather worker, a true artisan of some old school trades, I would say. Corbin, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a great opportunity.
Yeah, man. I'm glad we could connect. I'm excited for our conversation. Tell us real quick for the listeners, where are you currently at? Where are you beaming in from?
Well, right now I'm near the college. I'm at my shop right now, so
Love it.
enjoying the atmosphere down here on a nice
Yeah.
cold morning.
Cold morning and yet just gorgeous Grand Junction day. I'm pretty excited about the sunshine right now. Um, Corbin, where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up here in the valley. Actually, I was born right here at St. Mary's. So
Really?
as a little baby, we moved into a house next to St. Mary's. My father owned a business at the time, which was ran out of the house. So
Okay.
I got to learn a little bit of ins and out about business,
Yeah.
and that's actually really where my blacksmithing started.
What was it like for you growing up in Grand Junction?
Well, when I was little, it was kind of small for me. I had a couple of friends, and I went to this little Waldorf school, which I thought was just an amazing school, and it really got me into the experts of these traditional arts, because at the Waldorf school they did stuff like carving,
That's right.
um, and weaving and stuff like that, and that was a really good way to meet people that loved the enrichedness of the traditions.
Yeah, I love that. All right, so you grew up here, we're in the Waldorf school. That starts to add up, very hands-on style of education, experiential to a degree. Um, Catch us up from there. How did you go from like the Waldorf? I mean, did you pursue higher education with the arts? Did you travel outside of GJ and come back in? Give us a little bit of the roadmap.
I did. So, as a part of being at this Waldorf school, we really like to adventure. They would take us on road trips, which I guess is a big thing for a lot of schools. But we didn't do stuff like going to a movie or something like that. We went to traditional places. So, Cross Orchards here, which is a historical farm, they have a little
Yeah,
blacksmith shop, and I went
amazing.
there with the school, and I just lit up when I saw it. The blacksmiths in there, these guys are covered in coal dust and working at an anvil. And maybe for some people that's not as exciting, but they're in there beating hot metal and making these amazing things that I couldn't understand.
Mm.
And then from there, I got into YouTube. But while I was there, a blacksmith let me into the shop, and I actually got to do my first little bit of blacksmithing. And that, oh my gosh, I was just stuck with it after that.
That hooked you. That's cool. And so your shop is Ravenwolf McLeod Forge.
Yes, it is. Yes, it
When did
is.
you start that?
So I started doing my business when I was maybe like 13. I would
Okay.
sell to my friends and make stuff for my mom, of course. And then my mom was wearing one of my pieces, and we were walking around downtown, and somebody was like, "Oh my gosh, it's really cool. Where'd you get that?" And then I made a piece for them, and then we kind of just grew from there. And as I'm getting into my 20s here, it's just been an amazing opportunity to connect with people.
Hey everybody, this is Luke from Cooler Garage Doors. Just want to take a quick second to talk about our sponsor, Sommer Garage Door Openers. In our opinion, Sommers are the highest quality product on the market today. We recommend them for all of our residential garage door installs because of the variety of features they include, such as Wi-Fi connectivity and safety features such as a fixed chain, which moves along a secure rail to ensure your garage door opens quietly and safely. Click on the link in the description to learn more about Sommer Garage Door Openers.
That's awesome. I love that. And so, what are the types of things that you will put out from your shop?
So right now we're focusing on small items. People really love to get them for, especially since Valentine's just happened. So we're doing stuff like, of course, hearts. Rings is a really big thing. People love rings. I love making them because people have it's these unique ideas.
Hmm.
Necklaces, so a lot of jewelry, but as well as knives. People just love knives, and I love knives. I mean, it's the reason I got into blacksmithing was to make sharp things.
Hmm.
So some of the first things I made were knives and hatchets.
Did you go through a formal apprenticeship?
I did. I joined one of the blacksmiths here when I went and
Awesome.
blacksmithed in the little blacksmith shop there at the farm. Somebody told me they owned a blacksmith shop, and I
Hmm.
got to go over and learn some pretty unique skills over there with him, which lit up the world um of tradition. And it was that these traditional tools that I just couldn't fathom. You know, these guys have been doing it for
Mm.
so long, and they have all of these really special ways to do everything. And it was just like, oh my gosh, what a craft it is, to meet these people that have been doing it for a majority of their life.
Yes. How important do you think a true apprenticeship is in learning a craft?
Well, I can speak for myself. If I hadn't had that apprenticeship, I'd be way behind. There's a lot of things I wouldn't have learned. Um, it's the same as having a tutor when you're, struggling with math in school or learning an instrument. They know things that has only come through failing, only come through having a hard time, or mistakes. And, if I had to spend the time making those mistakes for myself, it would, I would be way behind. But these guys, they've made all these mistakes. They've been through all of this. And they have all these special tools and, how tall should the anvil be? And for a person like me, I wouldn't even thought of that. I didn't even know that would have to be a thing, but it's a special way you work. And then there's special skills that take the anvil at a different height. And then what hammer do you use for what? And it opened up a whole different world of knowledge.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of nuances there. Yeah, and I could see that in just about anything. What Give me a little bit more backstory to your forge. I want to hear a little bit about the name and what's driving you. What's the mission behind it?
Well, to start with blacksmithing, uh, I had been lit up so much by the idea of making knives and doing that, which some of the older guys are like, everybody just always wants to make knives, but it was definitely something I was very into. I actually had started out in my garage at the time. We had this vise, this little blue vise that had a flat top on top of it that kind of was like felt like an anvil top. You could beat stuff on it. It was, of course, it wasn't the most high carbon steel, so I ruined it later on. But I used to take nails and a little blowtorch and make knives out of nails, and that was kind of the start to it. And then later on, my dad, of course, gifted me a forge for my birthday, which was great. And I had a friend give me an anvil, which was a blessing because anvils are so hard to find.
Hmm.
Anybody who's out there blacksmithing knows how important it is to have an anvil. But I started out, and the first thing I made was a knife. I actually have that knife with me here, behind the camera, and it's been a great marker for how far I've come with skills. As far as like the business's name, it actually comes from my name. What my father has always told me since I was born is he met somebody who was like putting together Gaelic names and stuff like that. And Raven Wolf is what Corbin Connor means. And so I
Okay.
thought that was a great tradition to put into the name, especially since I
Awesome.
do a lot of Viking themed crafting as well.
Hmm. Yeah, and for any listeners that haven't put the dots together, I mean, very Scottish roots.
Very Scottish roots, especially with the last name. So
Yeah.
much Scottish that I did bagpipe competitions and I still do to
Yeah.
this day. I love wearing the kilt and going out there. I of course experiencing that tradition as well. I've learned to make a lot of things from that from Scotland and that. It's been a great
Do
adventure.
you have you ever tossed any logs, like the log pull
Oh
toss?
my gosh. My dad did. My dad did, and we actually I think um he was called the gorilla, but the only reason I remember is because he used to have this purple gorilla on the back of his shirt. Massive guy, oh my gosh, I mean, at the time, I think I was, like, 9, you could, like, stack 10 of me on top, and I still wouldn't be as tall as him. Huge dude, and it was awesome to see him out there at these competitions just hurling these logs, and he would win all the time. Sadly, he passed, not later after, but it stuck
Ugh.
with me, and to this day, I'm hoping to get into those competitions and do a little bit of that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Corbin and I had an opportunity to connect before we hit record, and I have got some Scottish background roots as well. I grew up playing a little bit of the bagpipe, but not ever progressed as far as you have, Corbin. But I remember those events, like going to the real Scottish events, and I would remember seeing those log huckers and being like, "Holy cow!" Like they're taking full on telephone poles and chucking them as hard as they can and getting them to topple over one another is impressive as heck.
Yeah, no
Pretty
kidding.
wild.
But same with, like, the bagpiping and being inside of those competitions was a really good way to set me up to becoming a blacksmith, because you have to be very patient. Because you can get oh my gosh, it can make you super mad. As you probably know, learning an instrument, it can be kind of frustrating at times as you're struggling to learn notes or you just can't get that
Yep.
thing right. So and it's the
Yep.
same in blacksmithing. I've had to remake pieces 100 times, to get something right, but it's always so sweet to get it right at the end.
I mean, blacksmithing, and you also mentioned a little bit of leather working. I mean, these are like old school traditional arts. Do you think that these traditional arts are dead or dying?
I think dying is a really big thing that comes around a lot, but I don't think they're dead. I think they're a great opportunity for young people to get into something physical. Um, Especially as a young man that was looking to get stronger and be part of those competitions. This is a rugged thing. You're spending a lot of time at an anvil, swinging a pretty heavy hammer for a young
Uh-huh.
dude, and learning great skills. And I think they're a really good way for kids to connect with the older generation. There is definitely a lot of loss of emphasis on online for blacksmith shops as kids get into more trendy stuff like dancing or more of that newer stuff. But that's a great identity for the young generation, like my generation. But I really want to come back and revive for the young generation these traditional arts because they play a really big role in not just connecting with the older generation, but also a big role in growing yourself as a person.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, for your perspective, how important is it to be able to craft, do things with your hands?
Well, it's so important that I built a business for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the mission of the business, to revive these traditional arts in people's lives because it gets really shadowed over with all of these, especially as people have hard times. And there might be a loss of it in the community. And as these older guys get to the point where they can't do it anymore, being one of the young guys, one of the only young guys here in Junction who has picked up the art, where our mission is to really revive it and bring it to the community because it has such great opportunities for not just people to connect with each other, but also people to express themselves. Um, you know, it's just like painting or any of those other arts. You really get to express yourself through it, as well as as I was talking about, grow yourself because there's a lot of skills you have to spend time on here. It's not like video games where maybe you play it for an hour and you're level 100. No, I mean these people that I've met as well as myself. It takes years. It takes a lot of years to get to the point where you know these skills. Which I was pretty arrogant when I came into it. I was like, oh, I'm gonna be an expert. I'm gonna be making swords right off the bat. No. I am at that point now. I've grown some pretty unique skills at it, but I think it's a great opportunity. I've gotten to connect with a lot of our community and make a pretty good impact. But as part of our mission, we want to save these reenactments. We want to save these historical sites. I've gotten to speak with a lot of the people that work at Cross Orchards in the past couple of months, and the Cross Orchards is having I don't want to say hard time. They're doing pretty well, but there's a loss of blacksmiths as people get into picking up a job because it is kind of a risk to come out here and start a business, as you know. It's risky to start a business. You're taking a chance that for the next couple of months you might be eating ramen noodles, but that's so important to me. I want to take this risk and I want to revive these historical sites and bring people into these traditions.
And I would imagine from I mean, you have a business, and whether you're eating ramen or not, there is some desire, some demand from the marketplace for these authentic items. Yeah.
Yes, there very much is. I've been doing very, very well, which is such a blessing to me to get to work with all of these people. The business is getting rather big, which is great.
That's
I'm
amazing.
looking into to maybe hiring some more blacksmiths as well as getting a much bigger shop here. So things have been well off, and I've been very blessed with this. Um, and I've gotten the chance to meet some amazing artists, not just in my art, but also other arts. And I really want to incorporate those other arts into my online platforms as well as my business.
Tell me a little bit more about that. What other arts are you referencing?
So some of the artists I've met in town have had a really hard time learning how to market. And I completely understand that. It's a hard game.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to connect to people, but it can be pretty simple as well because people, as they come online, they're looking for connection. As they're coming on and they're scrolling, they're looking for connection. They want to connect to an emotion. They want to connect to a business, and I want to be that business. I want to be interacting with people. I want to be connecting with people. The money doesn't matter as much as getting to affect people's lives because I want to be there and I want to connect with my audience because they really make this so much enjoyable. And I want to bring other artists in, and I want to give them an opportunity to show such unique art to my audience as well as grow their own audience because some of these arts, they might be buried under a layer of dust for a lot of people, and some of the artists have just moved into town and are really looking to make it big, getting a little bit of inspiration, and so I
Yeah.
want to build a platform for people to do that.
I love that. I just love you're speaking so clearly and talking about connection, which is just critical, right? And I think if there's any illusion that these traditional arts are quote unquote dying, it is because of the race of or the pace of technology. And that's another illusion, right? And we can see this and how it's moving, and then now we're interested in being influencers and dancing or do whatever. And yet people are so hungry for real authentic connection in this groundedness that I think an art like the forge can certainly bring home. Like it's so grounded, it's so real. You're working with earth materials and fire and water and all the like core elements, right? To craft something that is going to stand really the test of time. Um, and so I just wanted to emphasize that, wanted to honor your pursuit of that connection. Um, and then just kind of open-ended question, from your experience, from your engagement with these arts, the desire to connect people, what might be the top 2 to 3 things that you've learned through your journey, your apprenticeship, to, where you're at now, kind of on this journey of mastery, what are the things? What's the state of mind that you walk into your forge with, or what are the beliefs that you now carry, or what are the practical things that you're doing with your hands that might transpire and apply to anybody's life? Something that you practice and have honed in the forge, but also utilize in your daily life.
Well, with the ruggedness of the forge, I think the first thing I have to start with is patience. It's something it's such a virtue. It really is. And to have patience is to make something beautiful. I mean, to take the time out of your life to dedicate to a piece for somebody or a lot of people to enjoy, is I think an icon of love,
Mm.
for not just your craft, but those people you're making for. And patience it can be really hard sometimes, especially if you're making a piece and it's just not right. It's not just right, and you have to go back and restart completely. But that's really what makes these traditional arts such a learning mechanism for people to come into, especially for that whole patience part. Not only patience that you could be spending a year just learning some basic stuff, which I think is just fine, honing that skill a lot, but also patience with learning how to draw because there's a lot behind making stuff. I don't just go in there and like, I got the, it comes into my mind and then I come to the anvil and it comes out immediately. You're spending a lot of time in the process with drawing out something, especially if it's unique to a
Mm.
customer. When I work with businesses, I come to the business, I go and I talk to the owner, and I work with the business. I go around and I look at what art does the business have? Who comes to this business? What is the owner like? What is the emotions that the owner wants to bring to his business? And I think that's the uniqueness of, besides getting to work with your customers, but I think it brings the uniqueness of blacksmithing. I can come in, I can break apart your business and build something that's completely unique to you. Something that you're not really gonna get with maybe ordering an LED sign. These are all handcrafted. Every little detail is handmade, and I can, if even if I try, come in and remake it, it can never be the same.
Mm.
I can't remake a piece twice. I can make them very, 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 very close, but at the minute level, they're all gonna be different. There's gonna be a little detail somewhere else that isn't on the next piece, and I think that helps people have that connection to the artist.
Hmm. What I hear in that is intention, awareness, and love.
Yeah, love is definitely a big part of it. Love for your customer, as well as love for your craft. So I've had a couple of customers be like, "Oh, that piece is not right," and sometimes it's like, "Oh, that's kind of frustrating. I spent all this time and I thought it was very good." But to have love for that customer is to have and that connection with that customer is to really be like, okay, I'm gonna make a piece of art for you that you're gonna enjoy for the rest of your life. These really big companies that maybe make backpacks or make shoes or hats or whatever else. One, you're not getting connection from it. There's all of these walls of not just miscommunication, but walls of lack of connection. Um,
Yeah.
you know, if it's people that are working 9 to 5s that are just maybe they're not in the right position, and they're not liking their job, and you run into them, there's definitely a lack of connection there. But I always look for people that love this work, and that's really where a connection comes from, is not only do I love my art, but I love working with people, and it brings a unique connection to them, and they get to come straight to the forge. They get to be here with the process. Eh, if it's just me sketching up something for you and sending it to you and being like, "Is this you?" This is the process that I want to connect with people because, you're not just looking at a white website and there's a picture of a cup and you're clicking buy.
Yeah.
You're getting to
Yeah.
really experience the art and the artist behind it.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that so much, man. I mean, you're highlighting a vast void between transaction and quick throwaway style culture and relationship. And whether or not that's like a human to human relationship that lasts forever, but there's a relationship with that piece that is going to last for a long time. Understanding
Of
the
course.
story, understanding where it came from, understanding the artist behind it, the intention, the awareness, the love. Like, it's beautiful, man.
Well,
Good
as
for
you
you.
come into people's homes and they have these unique items, these heirlooms, they've been there forever, and then
Yes.
you can take something that's modern and it's all beat up in a week, it's like you've almost got to throw it in the trash can in a month. But as a blacksmith, I get to bring luxury into people's lives. I get to bring that luxury of you're going to have a piece that you're going to pass on to your kids and they're going to pass on to their kids, or you're just going to be able to see until the day you die. It's probably going to outlive you. Which is such a great thing because then you get a not only am I bringing a connection from myself as this is a traditional art into people's lives, but I'm also bringing their connection to their family. So they get to bring this piece. Well, why do you love this piece? They might ask them, where does this piece come from? What have you done with this piece? Especially if it's a tool, I've met a lot of artists that have used tools until they're worn out, or you see, as maybe you've walked around, people who have really old stairways, you can see on those knobs on top of the stairway where there's like almost handprints into it because they've used it for so long, and that brings a story and a life into the piece, which you probably don't get from mass manufacturing. I'm spending hours pounding and pounding on an anvil, putting my life into a piece, and it brings a soul to that piece, which gets to be experienced by everybody who gets to be around it.
It's beautiful depth, man. For listeners that want to learn more, engage, potentially become an apprentice to you. Well, where do we find you? Where are you hanging out online? Where can we see some of your pieces? Kind of get into the story.
I'm everywhere. So I'm on YouTube, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, and I love, send me a message, send me a DM if anybody has questions. I always love helping people out, especially in the comment section. I always love helping them out. But Raven Wolf McLeod Forge is going to be the name. It's got little underscores, of course, across the name because Instagram doesn't let you do spaces.
Yeah.
So I've kept it all the same, so it's super easy to find me. Um, there is if you just look up the name online as well, it'll pop up just there on top. Usually, it's the YouTube that pops up first because that's where I get a lot of my interactions is YouTube.
Love it, man. Raven Wolf McLeod Forge. Go check this cat out. And we will have your links in our show notes so that listeners can easily find you. And from what I've seen in my prep, like your stuff's legit and it looks super unique. And I could tell just by through our conversation and seeing these items, like there is depth. I mean, your mission of connection is real. And so I just really applaud your efforts, your mission, and really appreciate your time today, Corbin.
Yes, and thank you so much for having me. This was a great time to connect to somebody else who is also working here in the valley and has an amazing business. So thank you so much for
Appreciate that,
having me.
man. Yeah, ditto. Cool. Well, enjoy the day. We'll talk to you soon.
We'll talk soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, please know that I am incredibly humbled and honored. I can't believe I'm saying this. We have over 2,400 subscribers on our YouTube channel, and we're just growing. It is amazing. And your likes, your subscribes, and your shares have helped us get here. So let's grow this thing together and just know that you are appreciated.